Do you like movies and games also? Listen, so much more, they all know. Pyro, Lotus, and friends, welcome to Corrective Consciousness.
Welcome to Corrective Consciousness episode 125, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I am your host, Lotus Prince, and this is...
PyroJackFrost.
And OldManStompy.
I was going to ask what the J stands for, but now I'm being overwhelmed by initials. I don't know what to do, except for talk about this podcast's particular topic, which is party games. So, who likes party games?
I do,
Lots
I
of
do.
People. Yay, I do. So do you guys have particular favorites, or what is it that draws you to them? Like, I know there are 4 parties, but I guess we can talk about why they work, and again, favorite kinds, or what.
I mean, like,
entertaining.
I'm a big board game person, so I like a lot of board games, but like the real reason why I wanted to talk about this is I actually have a party coming up, and I got a Switch, and I'm wondering if I should buy Mario Kart or Mario Party or Smash Brothers. So that's because, like, it's funny. I like party games, but I think the reason why I like board game party games more is because you don't need to buy hundreds of dollars extra or ask people to bring extra things just so you can get a party going.
Oh, like, can you bring an extra controller?
Yeah,
or whatever?
yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because of I don't know, like regarding the timing, Smash is about to come out.
It comes out
and
tomorrow.
I know lots of people. Yeah.
Or
So
actually, it came out already by the time of this podcast.
Yeah, by the time this is up. Like, I know a lot of people are going to want to play Smash, but at the same time, like, Smash is super fun, but you just want to watch out for that one person who just gets, like, ultra competitive, because it's like a fighting style game. Like, it's definitely great for parties, but I think that's the kind of game where you might need the right group of friends for. Not even necessarily, like, the right personality types, but I mean, like, people of similar, like, gaming types at that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think if I played Smash, it would be with every stage, every item. Like, I wouldn't lock those out.
Oh, okay.
And I'd want to play with people who also are okay with not being competitive, because I'm not much of a fighting game person, and that's why I find it interesting that I would even want to get Smash, because I think I like the idea of fighting games more than playing them, because I suck at them. But I think one of the main draws for Smash was more single player, so I probably wouldn't want that at a party anyway. But then Mario Party, on the other hand, I've heard destroys friendships sometimes. So,
I mean, if you guys have survived like Dokapon Kingdom, then I think
I was gonna bring that one up. Everybody says Mario Party, Monopoly, and sometimes Mario Kart destroys friendships, but like
Dokapon Kingdom is shit.
I mean,
yeah, I know that not nearly as many people have played Dokapon Kingdom, but like, you will be out for blood by the time the game is over.
I've only played it once for a little bit, but then I've heard a lot of like strategies that you could do to like really fuck people over, and I'm like, wow, this is a lot worse than Mario Party.
Yeah, it's a board game where like you're competing against the other players, and you're trying to get like this ultimate end goal flag triggered, but you can directly attack other players and everything RPG style using like rock paper scissors techniques to see if you hit them and stuff, and that you can really ruin people's day.
Yep. I will say that the only reason Monopoly should ruin friendships is because you shouldn't be friends with people who play shitty games like Monopoly.
Well, the thing with Monopoly is that, like, back when I played it, I think there were certain rules we weren't taking into account. Like, if you can't afford a property, then it goes up for auction, which makes the game go way the hell faster instead of people just circling the board 100 times until someone can afford something.
So I learned recently that Monopoly actually has like alternative sets of rules that have like completely different victory conditions when it was originally marketed. Like the idea is that it's supposed to illustrate the flaws of capitalism. Like it's a political game, because the people who do well at Monopoly and get houses are almost always the ones who wind up winning, and it's almost impossible unless you're extremely lucky to like avoid their houses all the way around until because you can do perfectly well and avoid their houses, but if the other players land on them, then that person still continues to gain an advantage.
Right.
There are like alternate versions of Monopoly where the goal is like more of a collective one, where the game ends when like one player gets twice as much money as their starting amount. And I was thinking about this because they recently announced like Monopoly Millennial Edition.
Oh yeah,
where you like
I heard about that.
don't pay rent, you just visit the houses, and it's like this is supposed to be really tongue-in-cheek, and it's supposed to, like, make fun of what, like, old people who make Monopoly games, think about millennials. But, like, really that's actually they sort of accidentally made up Monopoly the way it was originally supposed to be played.
It's funny. Like,
funny.
I actually read about the Monopoly. Not that this is the topic, but I read about the Monopoly for millennials, and I actually find it kind of funny. Like, we have to joke about ourselves to really. It's funny because, like, the whole idea is you're not buying properties because who can afford it anyway, and you're trying to get experiences more than you are like property. It's ridiculous, but I find it kind of funny. But anyway,
if you land on avocado space, does that like go directly to jail? You can't afford to pay for it.
So yeah, I probably would be leaning more towards Mario Kart for the party game, just because I think that's a little bit more accessible by everyone. Although with Mario Party, you could play with a lot more people with one controller, because I think you can just play where you pass the controller. Oh, but
You
then
can do that, but there are multiple.
Games, so yeah,
That's the
maybe
thing. The
not.
mini games, like the thing with Mario Party is that I would under normal circumstances, like if I just looked at Mario Kart, Mario Party, I would say, well, obviously Mario Party is the party game and it's board game style. But the thing is, the randomness in that game can really just get people mad.
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden, you land in a hidden block and you just get a star, or like you hit the boo space and you steal another player's star, and it's a bitch to get any star in that game. So like,
I heard the Switch one is a little bit better, but yeah, there's that. So like, you'd have to play with people who realize that you're not playing necessarily to win, because
it's
the fact that you
the
win
journey.
could be completely random.
Wait, you know what my favorite was? This was an older Game Grumps video where they were playing one of the earlier Mario parties, and I've never seen this before, but it actually ended up that there was a tie for first place, where like even after they calculated the bonus stars, like they even had the same number of coins, and it was like, well, there's two of you, so we got to determine this somehow. Here, roll a die. Whoever gets the highest number wins. And they're like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, after all of this, it comes down to just a roll, like an actual literal roll of the dice. Like, it was like, I would have been furious that it happened to me, but like, just because of Schadenfreude and like, is this really happening? It was pretty funny to see it happen to someone else, because like, it all boils down to just this. Like, fuck it, it's chance. Like, oh.
It's fun. Yeah. It's interesting though. I'm trying to think about their party games, and I can't really think of many that can like hold more than 4. But I think some of
more than 4, I don't know. Well, actually, I just thought of something. If you get a Switch, I mean, this would be your jam all day and all night. Bomberman.
Oh,
it's 6-player consistently. It's 6 players.
That's true.
And it's got a bunch of new downloadable characters as well.
Bomberman is a great party game.
Yeah, you got Gradius, you got Simon Belmont, you got
Pyramid Head
of all characters in the world, because it's a Konami game, and different. I mean, obviously you have the Switch, so you'd probably be playing the Switch version, but the Xbox has Master Chief and the PS4 has Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank.
The only reason why I probably wouldn't get Bomberman is because I prefer Bomberman single. Let's not say I prefer Bomberman single player, but because there is, as far as I recall, no single player in the Switch version, it kind of defeats some of the purpose for me. But I was trying to think of other party games, and I think a lot of the party games are more like just multiplayer games that you can switch in and out. So like Towerfall is a great one, and Overcooked.
Towerfall is a great one.
Overcooked is also a good one.
Yeah, or Nidhogg, because it's only 2 players, but it happens so quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Towerfall.
Overcooked is among my favorite party games. It's because it's a collaborative. So like you
that's true.
You end friendships for the same reasons. Like if you get really frustrated with each other, but realistically, like all that really means is that you're playing a game for which you get frustrated when people play poorly, as opposed to something like Mario Party where you get frustrated when they get lucky or play really well.
And not only that, but unless you're playing with some top tier players, like, don't worry, the other team is just as stressed and bumbling as you are, because like the whole point of the game is that like it's designed to be stressful. Like you need to do all this in this period of time with this amount of heating before you do this, that, and the other thing. Like you're juggling all sorts of tasks. It's one of those things that, because it's a video game and you're playing with a controller, it's like it's like I know it's supposed to be emulating real life. You got to do this and that with the food when you're making food for real. But the fact that like if you were doing like making food at home, if you mess up, it's like, well, that's a pain. But in Overcooked, it's like you lose, like it's over.
You die.
And, like it just puts that like that lose condition on you, and you're like, I don't want that.
I mean, there are some failure conditions in Overcooked that make it extremely enjoyable to play. Like, just because of how far things can go off the rails. Like, anytime you leave something on the stove for too long and your whole kitchen winds up on fire.
Yeah.
Like, there's
I
no
haven't
way
seen that.
there's no way you're getting a good score on that level once that happens. You know, but it's like hilarious.
Well, I like when you're on the ship's galley, so because the ship's swaying back and forth, like the table will slide back and forth, so like paths will be closed and open to you, so like your navigation route changes, which would like never happen in real life.
Have you
but it's funny.
played far enough where you're trying to cook on the top of two trucks that are driving side by side?
That's so stupid.
And sometimes they move apart from each other, so...
I mean,
amazing.
have you
that's
played,
when you do a Jean-Claude Van Damme and just do the splits and you're still where you need
like,
to
have
be.
you played far enough such that, like, you're playing in a fucking volcano and, like, the tectonics change the layout of the level on you
I
occasionally?
think the farthest I've seen is in your like a space station.
That's like the last stage.
Yeah, that's the end of the game.
The last world.
Oh, I mean, I haven't I can't. I could say I've seen the stage, but I haven't seen all the stages because I don't own the game.
Yeah, it gets
pretty funny.
Pretty extreme cooking.
Yeah.
I would say the volcano is more exciting than the space station because I know like where do you go from space, but like the volcano sounds more crazy.
I mean, I would say the most ridiculous is even near the beginning because you play the first stage and you're like, okay, like I get the idea. The second stage adds a little bit more, and then the third stage you're playing and all of a sudden like there's apparently an earthquake and half of the restaurant like is above the other half of the restaurant and you're like, wait, what just happened?
Oh, that's incredible. And you're still in business.
Yeah,
You're still like serving
still
customers.
going, and then eventually it resides and and it's down again and it goes back up and you're like, okay,
I
can
love
kind of
stupid
see
bullshit like that.
where this game is going now.
Well, that reminds me of Yakuza Dead Souls. That's the game where there's a zombie invasion, but like business, like as long as you clear zombies out from the entrance, like once you do that once, like stores are open for business. Like people are still getting paid their shitty fees per hour to sell you like refreshments like during the zombie apocalypse. It's like, wait a minute, like this isn't worth it.
I think that Overcooked actually is my choice for like party game of the current generation. I know that like I think it was actually a party at Pyro's house before his current move where Minty Miss actually started playing Overcooked on the PS4 and like stayed there all night and played through the entire game in one sitting.
Nice.
And like people joined as the party went on. Like your sister-in-law I think actually sat down first with her and then like two other people. Not sister-in-law, all close, you know, but your fiance's sister.
Yeah. Another good party game is Tricky Towers. It's like think Tetris,
Yes.
but there's no walls on the sides, so you have to balance the pieces.
Oh yeah, there's sway,
Yeah.
and like if they're like you see how high, like when your tower collapses, it marks like the highest you got. I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's Tetris with like just enough real physics to be annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's kind of fantastic.
And even better is when you play multiplayer because there's like things you can do to your opponents to like mess them up.
Oh sure, like drop junk on them or whatever.
But
actually, by the way, I don't know if this fully would count as a party game, and I don't know. It's Nintendo, so I think you could, but I'm not 100% if they allow split screen. But have you considered Splatoon? Or Splatoon 2, I guess?
I don't...
Because, I mean, you can kill the opponents, but they respawn. It's more about covering the territory than, like, deathmatch.
I don't know if I would consider that a party game, because I don't know... I don't own it, so I don't know if they do split screen.
Yeah, I don't know.
Other than just, like, the Switch and the TV, but...
Oh, that's true, yeah.
But I think at least I'm probably gonna end up getting Smash anyway because I really like the single player. But I'd probably get Mario Kart.
Yeah.
But even that
Mario
being said,
Kart
I
is
was
also
gonna
fun.
say that Towerfall. I really love Towerfall. I know I mentioned it earlier, but
Yes.
it's just like skillful enough that if you're good at the game, you can make like crazy shots. But even if you're playing with a bunch of people who like are only okay, there's still sometimes when like crazy stuff happens and you're like, how? Wait,
Yeah.
what? Like
not only
banking
that, but,
arrows
like-
and stuff like that.
Yeah, but also, like, the fact that you can dash into arrows to catch them
Yeah.
to time it right, or just the fact that you can duck. I think a lot of people forget that you can just duck. So, like, that can change the course of, like, not a round, but, like a critical moment. And the fact that you can jump on a player's head with or without arrows,
Yeah.
like... But at the same time, if you try that, they could aim upward and shoot at you. Like, it's a basic game, but you can do a lot with it, which is really entertaining.
I think one of the best, like, let's say plays that I saw, it wasn't necessarily the killing blow, but someone was like jumping over a gap and someone shot an arrow up, and at just the right moment they dashed into the arrow and shot it down.
Yeah,
and
it's
kill the person.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Or even when you aren't really familiar with the dashing mechanic, just catching someone's arrow at all might stun the player long enough to be like, wait, what? And then you just hit them.
Yeah.
Which is pretty entertaining. That was one of those games, my first time I ever played that game, it was at a MagFest where Perry invited me to play because a bunch of people were already playing it.
There's our obligatory reference to Perry in this podcast.
Gotta do it. But it was just like, it was one of those things where like, I quickly got the hang of it, and when I got good, it was like, everybody's good at that point, so it, like we really had a game going. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention some like board games too. Like some of the games that I really like are like hidden role games. I know my fiance doesn't like them that much because she doesn't like when she has to lie. Like, if you've ever played Werewolf, like games like that, where one person or Resistance or what like one or a set of people are the bad guys, and the rest of the people.
Yeah, I've done Resistance at least.
And so everyone knows who the bad guys are. All the bad guys know who the bad guys are, but the good guys don't know who the bad guys are, and they're trying to work together to like get through it. Werewolf is similar in the sense though where there's like werewolves and there's townspeople, but every night the werewolf gets to pick someone to kill. So the townspeople are slowly dropping down, but sometimes the townspeople are going to but every day the townspeople get to pick someone to kill. But everyone's there, so they're trying to kill the werewolves, but they might end up killing the townsfolk if the werewolves are good enough liars.
Yeah, they might just double the werewolves kill count.
So like I like games like that just because even though I'm not that great at them, it's really interesting trying to look at people's like tells.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at lying as well. That's why I prefer Coup, but Resistance is still fun.
But some other like good party games that I've been playing lately are like word games. If you ever played Codenames, that's one, but there's been like a lot of other games lately. So Codenames is the idea of there's teams of two, one person on each team.
There's two teams, not teams.
Sorry, yes, there are two teams, and on each team there's a spy master or a spy master who can see like which cards that are on the board relate to their team and that relate to the other team, and then everyone else on their team is trying to like figure out which cards are theirs. But the spy master, all they can tell them is one word and a number, meaning like here's a word and this is how many cards relate to that word. And it can get really challenging because you're going to look at some combinations, but the word you want to use could end up making them pick the other player's cards. Or the worst case scenario could end up making them pick the bomb, which is an instant lose. And that's fun. But there's a new game that came out that I didn't get a chance to play yet, but it's called Trap Words, which is basically a reskin of an old game where the one team has to try to guess a word, but the other team gets to pick words that they cannot say to try to get them to get that word. So like if my word was goblin, let's say, and I'm trying to get the rest of my team to guess the word goblin, but you're the other team and you say like, well, they can't say green, they can't say orc, but I don't know what words you picked. So I'm trying to get them to guess my word, but I have no ideas what words I can't say.
But what happens if you say the word? What happens if you say the word you can't say?
Then then it goes to the other team to try to do that. So the idea of this is now there's like levels, like there's a little dungeon you're going through, and what makes it interesting is that because it's called because of the different theme, there's other effects that might happen. I don't remember what they are, but it sounds like a really cool reskin of whatever the old game was.
So I'm thinking of Taboo.
Taboo, that is what it is. Yep.
So, but in Taboo, it's basically the same thing. It's like a more rigid version of that, where you're trying to get your team to guess a word, and there's a list of things you can't say, and someone has to hold you accountable from the other team, and they can miss and forget, and then you just get away with it. It's a little, but like it's another level of intrigue if you don't know what if you have to guess what the most likely associations with your word are that the other team would pick for you, and
right, because it can play like a double layer mind game too. Because I could be the person who's trying to have my team guess goblin, and I could just assume, you know what, they're probably going to go with the obvious ones. They're going to say green, orc, whatever. But then the other team is like, you know what, they're already going to think that they cannot say green and orc. So we're going to add another. We're going to have another one instead. So that's going to basically end up making 3 words they can't say because they're going to think they can't say. So it gets crazy.
That's clever.
And the way that it works is because
there's different
levels. So like the first level, the other team can only pick like 1 word that they can't say, and then the second level there's 2 words. So it gets harder as the as the teams progress, their time gets harder to give the other team a chance to catch up. So
Yeah, but no, this just sounds like one of those games where like everybody probably plays it the basic way first. Like you can't say green, you can't say orc, but like by the time you get experienced players, there's like a whole meta game going on of like what I think he'll think. I'll try to stop him from saying. That just gets entertaining. Like it reminds me of the Resistance actually, regarding like when you first play the Resistance, the bad guys all look at each other and then they try just lying their way through getting into the good guys' vote. But like in later games of Resistance,
they'll throw each other under the bus just to try to
exactly. Yeah, you might have a bad guy throw another bad guy under the bus, and yes, he really is a bad guy. So now we can trust this other bad guy, and the whole game just thrown out the window. So, and then in a third iteration, would the bad guys throw each other under the bus? And there's a new level of suspicion too. It's pretty interesting.
Then you've got like the -1 level, where like two of you are the bad guy, and you both throw each other under the bus at the same time, and you lose the game as a result, which has happened several times.
So another party game that I found fun, but my fiance didn't like, is called Spyfall. It's
okay.
I don't know if either of you ever played it, but
I've played it at your place before.
Yeah. So the general idea is, everyone gets let's say you're playing with 7 people. 6 people get to see where you are, and they're all given like the role that they are in that place. So like one of you would be the engineer on a boat, the other one would be the captain, the other one would be like a passenger of the boat, etc. But one person is a spy, and they don't know where you are. And the whole point is the spy, every time a person gets to ask someone else a question to try to figure out if they're the spy or not. But it can only be like I don't remember if it can be a yes or no question, but like it
definitely doesn't have to be a yes or no question. I remember so like our friend Perry always used to ask like land, sea, or air.
Yeah.
If it was topical.
And so the whole point is the spy is trying to answer the question in a like general enough way that they don't show that they're the spy, but specific enough, and they're trying to listen to what the other people are saying to kind of guess where they are. And it's really funny too, because if at the last moment the spy is caught, if they can correctly guess where they are, they win. Which makes it really funny, because I heard this on like a podcast I listened to. They thought it was really funny because it's kind of like the spy jumping out the window at the last moment, saying where they are, and they're survive, and they like have their parachute, so they survive.
Well, the whole like idea is kind of goofy to begin with, because if you're a spy and you get dropped off somewhere, like of course you know that you're in a hospital or something. Like how would you not know? But I like this game because I'm terrible at it. I dislike these games for the same reason as your fiance, but I still play them because it's fun. I'm a terrible liar. I hate being confronted and having to make something up on the spot. I'm just really bad at that. But I remember like when you are the spy and you've got a good thing going where people really believe you, sometimes it feels like you can't do anything wrong, right? Like, and you're just sitting there like shrugging to yourself, but trying not to be too excited about it, because it's like, wow, they're really buying it. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but they all seem to look at me like that, like I belong here, I'm making perfect sense apparently. And like those moments are really funny to me.
Yeah, there's another game that my fiance really does like, and I kind of like it. But it's called Magic Maze. So the premise is you are 4 adventurers who are down on your luck, so you have no better option than to rob a mall. So that's the premise of it. The thing is, though, that it can play up to 8 people. You don't control the characters directly. How it is each person can control one action. So one person can move all the characters north. Another person can move all the characters south, etc. Like one person can use is the only person who can use the escalators, etc. But the thing that makes it hard is you cannot talk.
Oh, interesting.
And so what happens is you have to get all the characters to the. You start with just one grid, and you have to move the correct color character to the correct edge piece to explore a new map tile. And you have to keep doing that, moving the characters around until all of the weapons are available. And then you have to move all the characters to their weapons. And then once you move all the characters to their weapons, you have to make them all escape through the correct exit. But again, you cannot talk through the whole thing. So it makes it really difficult, because one person is trying to move everyone south, but does not know which one necessarily should be moved south at any certain time. And there's like this one it's called the do something pawn, I guess you could say, which you can like tap in front of a person if you want them to do something. So if the person is supposed to move to the north but they don't notice, you can like tap the pawn in front of them, but it can get really obnoxious because that just keeps being moved around, tapping. Like there's one person who was in control of the escalators, and we were trying to tell her to move someone up the escalator, but she just took that pawn and started slamming it in front of someone else because she thought that someone had to move it south, and it got really, really crazy, and it can be kind of fun at times, but also really, really stressful.
It reminds me of one of my favorite party games, which is Concept. Actually, a game I don't own, even though I love
that
the
game.
hell out of Concept.
We do own that.
Yeah. I think I've played it at your place a bunch of times.
My brother recently got it. It's so good.
Concept is a game where you have like a bunch of cards. I don't actually know what the real objective is. We just play until we're tired of playing Concept.
Oh no, I mean the objective. I can tell you this. The objective is to get like the most points up to like some certain tally.
We just play for fun. So
it's more fun to just play for fun. Yeah.
So you get a card, and it's supposed to be ranked like 1 through 9, roughly in order of difficulty. And you're supposed to, and there's a board with a bunch of pictograms on it, and there's a little decoder sheet that tells you roughly what they're supposed to represent. But it's like a bunch of colors, a bunch of shapes, directions, like types of people, like pictograms that represent abstract concepts like old and young. And you're supposed to use these concepts plus some little tokens to try to describe something to the rest of
Iron Man or a cat.
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of which, no, we can go with Iron Man. So you have a bunch of different tokens that represent categories and subcategories. So what you would do for like Iron Man, for example, is you would put like your biggest like indicator of what this thing is on like a person. And then for maybe like a subcategory, you would put it like on fictional. So you could tell it's a fictional person. And then you might include something, putting it like, you don't have to just put it on the pictures and they work from there. You might, like, the pictograms are just there for reference, really. Like, if you have a picture of, like, a bunch of animals, you might put the token on the sky part of the picture to indicate that they can fly. It's very easy to misinterpret this, though, which is where the fun and stress come from, because they might be like, now it's an animal. Like, no, and you gotta explain yourself without actually talking to the person.
That's why it kind of reminds me of what Pyro is talking about, is that like once you start to get locked in, if you're the person explaining the concept, you tend to sort of fixate on a handful of things that you're really sure represent what you're talking about, and you start like jamming the tokens down, because you a lot of the time for really complicated concepts you have like a flow. So like for once one of the hardest things I ever did was Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. So,
Jesus.
Well, I mean, I think it was just the person Madame Tussauds. So, like, first I tried to establish, like, okay, it's a location. It's close to Times Square. It's in New York. And they eventually got that far. And then I start doing, like, a building containing statues of people who are famous.
Yeah.
And, like, it's not all of these things can precisely be, like, arranged. But that was how I chose to approach the problem. And once you get locked into that, it's hard to think of another way to walk people through.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's very hard to restart.
So you wind up like tapping the same things over and over again because you can't talk. So like you just wind up getting really aggravated and banging on the board until people get frustrated with you.
The most difficult thing that I was actually able to get across, although it took a while, was my main category was like I put it on the word bubble, like it's an expression. And then I put like somewhere on like a picture of the planet or something. I just put it on like one of the continents, and then they have like the 5 senses, like they have a picture of lips, a picture of an ear, that kind of thing. I put tokens on all of them except for the eye, and then from there I think I started a new branch of thought where it was like I covered one of the eyes of a person and went to like royalty somehow, but like it was supposed to be in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I mean, like because I'm describing it out loud, I might have given some stuff away, but on the board it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
And like, and meanwhile, Luminaire had to do like strike while the iron's hot, which is a much shorter expression, but it was really hard to convey because there's nothing that really indicates hitting something, and like iron specifically, so it was like materials like metal, and it was just like, where do I so it's pretty tough.
That's why this is so interesting to me, and also part of the reason why I like playing party games like Resistance and Coup so much, because like in concept, there are things that like I don't know very much about, or I don't have an attachment to this thing, or I wouldn't really know how to describe it. But if I play with a different set of people, maybe they have an association that I don't, and they'd be able to describe it or explain it, and that's just really interesting to me. The same thing with the lying games, because you learn how different people play it, and that's what makes a good party game partially.
Well, speaking of people having different associations, another favorite game of mine is Dixit. Do you guys know that one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I love Dixit.
The game is freaking brilliant, but like the point of Dixit is you have a bunch of cards with really abstract, like out there pictures, like fantasy looking style a lot of the time, and what you're supposed to do is each player puts down a card, and the host player is trying to get people to guess which card is his, but the fewest amount of people, like if no one guesses it, then you don't get any points. If everyone guesses it, then I think you get a point, but they all get more. But if exactly one person gets it right, then both the host and that player gain max points and no one else gets anything. So for max points, you want to have someone get it right, but as few people as possible. So you can get some weird stuff. Like for one of them, there was this abstract, like red phoenix looking thing. So this was when it was more topical, but Mr. Ryu made the reference like Taja Door, which is like a Kamen Rider O's reference that I was the only person in the room who had a chance of getting that. It was like borderline cheating for that reason. Like, so you can have some really entertaining stuff. I think like the most fun clue I'd ever done was my card was a picture of a candle, but instead of melting wax, it was like there was blood coming out of the candle.
Oh, wow.
So my like it was blood like melting from it. So my clue was save the whales, and that's like there is no indication of whales anywhere on the card. So like only like it happened that only one person got it. It's one of those things that people could have guessed it, but it was very much not obvious. Similarly, one person played a really sick clue that ended up like I think it was like backfired the clue I was trying to play, where oh no, what it was is once the person puts down a clue or whatever, I think other people are supposed to look like they say the clue and they put down their card, and then every other player tries putting down their cards as well, and they want their card guessed. So if people guess the wrong player, then that player scores as well. So I remember there was one clue where it was like an hourglass where as the sand went down, you see a depiction of someone getting progressively younger. So that was the host card, and the person had said if only. But a different player had posted like what looked like a picture of a scarecrow. So everybody went with the scarecrow because like if I only had a brain. And so that player killed and just took the host down. It was like, oh damn. So like Dixit can be really fun for that reason.
I was going to also say one kind of party game that I'm really getting tired of are the Cards Against Humanity and the adjacent games, because it's really frustrating when you think you have a funny joke, but no one else at the table understands it. And like those games with like the I mean, maybe not the host and Dixit, but like with those games where you have the judge, and everyone's trying to put down like what they think is the best response. Like same with Apples to Apples, and
yes,
there's one made by the Cyanide and Happiness people who they have a game like that, and I'm kind of starting to get tired of those types of games because it's. Although that being said, Fun Employed is really fun. It's a game where you get like a random assortment of traits, and and one person is the judge, but you're trying to convince them why you're the best person for that job. But the traits are like stupid things like hairy armpits and like that you're a stripper.
That's pretty good.
And it's pretty funny trying to hear the people trying to convince the judge why they're good. Because like I like that because the people will get to try to explain their reasoning. Whereas in Cards Against Humanity and those kinds of games, you're supposed to be just quiet about it. You put your card down, and the judge just looks at them and picks one they think is best. But I like the ones where there's a judge, but you get to kind of explain a little bit to try to convince them.
In that case, there's a game that I think you would like. Although one other thing that does frustrate me about Cards Against Humanity is when people just look at the answer cards. It's supposed to be you put down a black card, which has some premise or like a fill in the blank, and then people put down white cards to like associate with it or fill in the blank. But I do find it frustrating when a white card wins just for what it says and not for how it's used with the black card. Like, if you look at the original set of Cards Against Humanity, there were several cards that made fun of, like, Glenn Beck, like, topical. And it's just like, what could those possibly go with? In, like, because they were, like, paragraphs, because it was kind of silly by themselves, but what are you going to put them with? And it's just, like, it just defeats the purpose of the whole game for me. But for a game, Pyro, that I think you would enjoy, have you ever heard of Snake Oil Salesman?
I've heard of it, but I haven't played it yet.
The premise is really simple. It basically entirely what you just said. The basic idea is people get a card, and like each person gets a card, and it'll say something like, oh, how did this work? It was something like you had like a really, really stupid product, and the host is a particular kind of person, like a janitor, a pregnant woman, and you have some dumbass product, and your entire point is to try pitching that product to this kind of person. It's pretty entertaining. So like the whole game is just people saying stupid things to make like incredible leaps of logic to make their products work.
Oh, another good party game that I think OldManStompy you played that I own is called Monikers.
Oh, yeah, I enjoyed this one. And I played, like, the custom version at, like, one of your friend's baby showers, too. Like, that's a really easily extensible game, which is kind of how I like some of my party games to be. So, like, I don't know if this has ever been discussed in the podcast, but Cards Against Humanity, I don't like the base game at all, but we've made, like 8 or 9 at this point custom sets, like, that largely make fun of Lotus Prince.
But the thing is, it's a bunch of inside jokes though, so it's like fun only for us.
Right.
But the fun for us is greatly enhanced.
That's the point. Is that like the jokes are tuned so that you don't have to try to figure out what it's about, or it's unlikely it's something that like only the host or the judge, would get. It's something that we would all find pretty funny, and like they're set up to play off of each other.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Speaking of playing off each other, I remember I think someone had once made the card like the vampire arc of Bleach as a white card, which is kind of funny because it's dumb. And then later on, I think I had made a card like the vampire arc from Gantz. It's like, remember that? Oh, by the way, one thing I forgot about Snake Oil Salesman, I was a little wrong with the card you get to try to pitch it. I think you had like 2 cards, or like you had a hand of cards, like 5, and they had like words on them. And you would have to take, like, 2 and combine them. Like, I remember, like, my cousin had, like, he used bone and computer. And he's like, it's a bone computer. And it's just kind of funny by itself. Like, so quick, figure something out for that. Like, it was, that's why Snake Oil Salesman is funny. Because you have stupid products for people who don't, well, no one will want them. Or for people who don't want them.
All right, I'll play this with you, Lotus.
Yeah. But I'm sorry. Back to Cards Against Humanity. Yeah, like our esoteric cards were quite entertaining.
Monikers. So Pyro, have you explained moniker? I think you've talked about this before on the podcast.
I probably have, but
continue.
Yeah, but the idea is that like, however, whether you do it based on how the game says or otherwise, you're gonna have a selection of cards within your group that's 2 teams, and what's happening is every on your team. You have one person has 2 minutes to try to have their team guess as many of the cards in that the total pile as possible. The first time they can basically say as many words as they want, but they can't say the word on the card. So if it was like Iron Man, you could say superhero shoots laser beams out of his hands, flies, wears
Tony
metal.
Stark.
Yeah, you can say Tony Stark.
Yeah,
unless
Tony
it actually
Stark.
said Tony Stark the Iron Man.
Right.
Okay.
So then you guess Tony Stark, then I go to the next card, and I keep going through as many as I can within 2 minutes. When time's up, the next team, one of their players, gets to do the same thing with the same pile.
There's been game shows like this.
And then when time's up, it goes back to the first team, and it goes back and forth until all the cards were guessed. But then what happens is you tally your points, you hold that to the side for a second, you put all the cards back together, and you do the same game again, but now you can only say one word. So it makes it harder because you can only say one word, but now you know all the cards in the deck. So you're trying to find better associations for those words based on that. But then, after that, there's a third round. Put all the cards back together. Now you can only mime the card.
It's brutal.
And then it's funny too because you can technically make this game however you want. Like, you don't have to do those 3 rounds. You could have the first round be any amount of words. The second round you can only say 2 words. The third round you can only say 1 word. You can make it to the last round. One of these podcasts I listen to called Shut Up and Sit Down, they usually do their own fourth round, which after you've been done mimicking the action, now you have to go behind a couch and only use your hand to mimic the card.
Nice.
Wow.
So I will say that. So this highlights a sort of a small issue that I have with some of these party games. Not that it's necessarily a bad thing, but it sort of loops back into the problem that you sometimes have with the judge games like Quiplash or Cards Against Humanity. And that's so like there was a time we were playing Monikers, and one of the cards was the Underground Railroad, and the person was in the second round, so they were doing the one word, and they just went like choo choo like a train, and someone didn't get it, and they just guessed like the California Raisins, and we were like what the fuck was that? Like why would you say California Raisins to a train noise? And so the next time around, and also for like subsequent rounds, because you pick amongst yourselves which cards make it into the deck every time you play. Like that became like the California Raisins thing.
Yes.
Someone would always pull California Raisins out of the deck, and everybody else would be so locked in on Choo Choo that they would just keep doing it. And it stops being funny after a while, but like that tends to be how these games go. Like especially in Cards Against Humanity and Quiplash, that like people really like someone says something which is original and funny, or something emergent happens, and then the people just like beat it into the ground until it's not funny anymore,
Right,
and then keep saying it anyway. And so sometimes you wind up with like two interpretations of the running gag going head to head against each other, and like they're both stupid now at this point. But
they've achieved like meme singularity.
But also the person who submitted it thinking it was hilarious because they're still laughing at the running joke gets like a little bit put off by it because nobody thinks that their running joke is funny anymore. And it kind of like exponentially decreases the fun that you're having as a function of time, where you sort of like slide into the point where people are ready to start making inventive jokes again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, anyway, party games are great because it's a good way to get people to do things with each other. But I mean, unless you two have any other games you want to mention, anything you want to discuss, I think we can move on to the fan reactions.
Yeah, not particularly. The only thing I would say is if you have games that require like a lot more thought and like deliberation, like concept or whatever, again, like what we were saying about Smash Brothers, is I would recommend you have people with similar personalities, because I can see it very easily where you have like a small group of people who are super into it and like three other people are like, all right, I'm gonna do something else, and it kind of breaks off. Because, like, you gotta, like, be in it for the long haul or do something else,
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, we can move on to a fan reaction. Baka-sensei had a couple of points. One of them was, this is from when we were talking about books to games, like being adapted to games. If we don't count graphic novels, he says, if I remember, there was a game for The Hobbit, even before the era of Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I think it was, like, PS2, unless there's a different Hobbit game. It was short, and I thought it was related to the first animated Lord of the Rings. And this is something I didn't know. The Witcher doesn't count. It had a short live-action series on Poland. I don't know if the game was based on that or the books. I suspect the books, but it's interesting that it was TV first. Yeah. Anyway, the question, about the question, this is like, do you prefer a game with a good story but bad gameplay, or like good gameplay but bad story? So he's saying, I would forgive the gameplay. Like, sometimes if I like the story, I'd forgive the gameplay, and vice versa. For example, I've played Disgaea 1 through 3 and re-releases of 1 because the characters have a compelling story, but the grinding is tiresome. Yes. And MechWarrior has almost no story on games, but I'm piloting a mech. Also Ace Combat and Armored Core.
I can agree with that.
Yeah. So, and one other post is, actually, I'm glad you're here for this, OldManStompy. He says, same person, Baka-sensei. I know this is late, but thank you for the short summary on the wrestling event. It's always fun to hear the rant of OldManStompy with all relevant on the ins and outs and all the bank of knowledge on the subject about the games. About bank of knowledge on the subject, period. And then just as for games wanting to mention, Just Cause 4 is a good like sandbox game.
Then I'm sorry that like wrestling was so boring in the last week that I couldn't even think of something to rant about.
Alright, so our fan question then is from the Cadet Jaina. So it's, do you guys have any favorite historical figure? My favorite, the Cadet Jaina's favorite figure is a little bit creepy since it's Jack the Ripper, but I'm sure you guys are more reasonable than I am. Maybe. So yeah, do we have a favorite historical figure? Because honestly, I'm having trouble thinking of, like, my go-to historical figure. Like, I don't really think in that way usually.
I mean, I think Abe Lincoln was pretty baller.
So he was fighting vampires.
I mean, in real life, I know this because Abe Lincoln was an accomplished amateur wrestler, and he invented or
really?
popularized. He was an
the
amateur
choke
professional,
slam.
and he invented the choke slam.
Yeah, that's
Like some variant
amazing.
of it.
Yeah, that's kind of fantastic.
Okay, that's my answer then.
And wasn't Abe Lincoln like tall too?
Yes, he was. I'm
so
sure,
like you have a long way to the ground when he choke slams your ass.
I mean, I'm sure it was like a grappling maneuver and not like the Kane or Undertaker style choke slam where they pick you up on the neck and like slam you into the ground.
Just imagine him doing that like with the stovepipe hat on for some reason.
I mean, if he was an actual professional wrestler, he would have that on the whole time and it would not come off if he delivered his choke slam. It would just, and then he would just like put it on top of you or toss it on you.
Yeah, put it on your
as
chest, like.
But yeah, I think like. Honestly, it probably would have been Abe Lincoln even before this new knowledge that I have about him. But but I think it's for what I don't want to say what little I know about history because I shouldn't say that because my mom was a history teacher. But a lot of the people that you read about in history were that weren't involved in like civil rights issues or like people who made sure that good things happened were complete dicks. And most of the people that you read about were complete dicks in history. So it's really hard to say. Like, even I would say Jack the Ripper is not that bad of an answer, more because of the mystery behind him, not the fact that he killed people.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and say Marie Curie was one of my favorite historical figures.
That's
I
a
came
good
up
one,
through you know I was a professional
discovered
physicist,
uranium,
and she is of course one of the only people to receive 2 Nobel prizes, one in physics and one in chemistry. One of a litany of people who worked in early particle physics before we understood what radiation poisoning was, and unfortunately was killed by it. Basically, almost every major nuclear physicist from the turn of the 20th century died of radiation poisoning, except for Marie Curie's husband, who was killed because he was run over by a beer truck before he could die of radiation poisoning. But I'm sure he had cancer.
The one thing more dangerous than radiation.
Alcoholism? Well, sort of. Rutherford.
That's like the Mrs. Doubtfire joke. Like, it was the drink that killed him.
Yes.
Oh, he was an alcoholic? No, he was run over by a Guinness truck. Like, okay.
For all I know, he might be referencing something he heard about Pierre Curie, like in his youth.
Yeah, who knows?
So
Albert Einstein also is a good choice, I would say.
Well,
go ahead.
Einstein was also like kind of a creep at Princeton and had to be like housed away from the female students.
Okay.
So he runs into all the same problems as all the other guys that we've been talking about.
Right.
Well, that's the thing. It's like Christopher Columbus. Oh, wait, no. He was, like, the worst. Like, Thomas Jefferson, everyone loved him. Yeah, but he was also the worst. Like, it's really hard to, like, sort somebody out.
A lot of the people who you'd want to talk about have largely been erased from history. Like the Oatmeal comic had a whole segment on Christopher Columbus, and they actually, like, went and found someone in history who was somewhat more obscure, like Bartolomeo something, I can't remember his name. Hopefully someone in the comments will supply it, who actually became a missionary opposed to the slave trade in between the Americas and bringing slaves back to Europe or using them for labor in the Americas. And like those are the people who you don't see in the history books, whom you'd want representing your view of what the times were like and who you'd aspire to be like, if you were trying to learn some lessons from the time in history. And that's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, actually, if I had to pick someone, like, again, I don't know if these other people have darker histories or what, but, like, in terms of subversion of expectations, I might go, like, I'm not into sports, but on principle, I kind of like the idea of Jesse Owens, just because he raced in the Olympics when it was, like, wasn't it being, like, hosted by, like, Nazi Germany?
It was in Berlin, yeah.
Yeah, and he, like, fucking won like in front of everyone. Also there's Mary Shelley, famous author of Frankenstein. She was particularly interesting because her husband was Percy Shelley, and like at his time he was super famous, but now a lot of people don't even know who he is because Mary Shelley so very much eclipsed him with that book, which is insane. Like, it's not like she became more famous. It's he's obscure now. Like, that's fucking ridiculous. Like, that doesn't happen. And like I had heard that she like kind of got the idea from Frankenstein. It might have been from a dream or something, but I think she described it as like in like telling like a ghost story where it's like a creepy body set up and it had dead eyes and this, that, and the other thing, but it like really freaked out the people she was telling the story to. It was like a legitimately scary ghost story, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
So that's kind of awesome.
Another one is Helen Keller. Like, we know about her as she grew up in her story, but like after.
Oh, talk about being erased from history. There's business with her as well.
When she became an adult, she was a suffragist. She was an activist. She was a union advocate. She was a pacifist, an anti-war activist.
Yeah, because like everything you learn about her in school is like she was a child who got frustrated, but her teacher persevered, and like. Yeah, no doubt that's true, but Helen Keller herself is a very important figure, like, on her own, that, like, that material is very much glossed over.
I mean, we can certainly credit her teacher for allowing her to, like, access the outside world and become the activist that she became. But, like, let's not forget that she was the one who did a lot of the work.
That's the thing. Yeah, our school lessons never went there. It was like, and then she appreciated her lessons her teacher taught, which, again, is true, but, like, that's where the history lesson stops. And you're kind of like, wow, good for that teacher. And we know Helen Keller as a blind, deaf, and mute person, and that's it. And, like, we don't know her as, like, the actual, like...
human being.
Important person she became, yeah.
So this is a topic that I definitely think we would be well-served to hear from our listeners on, because, you know, what we're going to pose is going to be really Amerocentric, since we're all U.S.
Right,
citizens,
yeah.
You know? So I'm sure there are perspectives that we're really missing out on.
Yeah. And by the way, I can't believe that Vlad Tepes ripped off of Castlevania 64. That's unbelievable to me.
So specifically Castlevania 64.
Yeah, specifically Lords of Shadow.
Apparently Tepes
specifically
is an
Judgment.
epithet. Like, apparently Tepes is an epithet, not actually his last name. So it's like weird. Really? It's weird that they keep calling him that. I think it actually means like the Slayer or the Impaler or something.
I didn't know that.
Like his last name is actually like Dracul. I don't know.
Okay.
So someone will correct us, hopefully. Like, I know
the important thing is that he can turn into a dragon sometimes,
and that he. So there was a Twitter post going off that for introverts, Dracula in Castlevania is exactly how they want to aspire to approach all social situations, where they like loom over everybody, like mostly hide in darkness, and when confronted explode into a cloud of 1,000 bats and fly
just turn
away.
into Mr. River Bats, just peace out. Yeah, I'm done here. I don't need to be here.
Yep.
Go into their upper upside down room that they don't want to bother you with.
Yeah, and like the Dracula in the Castlevania cartoon series is just like so much cooler than any other character in the entire series, except maybe for his wife. So I can see why people are interested in him right now.
Yeah, I heard the Dracula in that series had more of like a personality. Like, yeah, he just wants to kill everybody, but apparently he's a badass in a way that's interesting, but he's also world weary. So he's beating the shit out of you anime style, but he's so done with his existence like at the same time, which is kind of interesting.
So he's definitely like very tragic, and so the story does a really good job of balancing the fact that he's a very like sad and pathetic figure, but also that he's definitively the villain who wants to wipe out all of humankind, even though like humankind is not shown to be particularly redeemable in this series or like redemptive. You know, they do a good job of making him feel like the villain while also giving him a backstory. And, like, I thought at the time it was kind of dumb that he did, like, martial arts anime-style beatdowns, but then I remembered, like, the Order of Ecclesia game where on the 3DS, where the Dracula fight, like, the first half of the Dracula fight is just, like, the regular one where he teleports around and shoots fireballs at you. Then when you get his life down halfway, like, the fight, he doesn't actually get more overbearing or turn into a demon. He just, like, turns sideways and becomes a 3D model and just starts like walking after you, and you're like, oh fuck, I'm so dead now. Like, he's gonna punch me.
That's awesome.
It's like really scary.
Actually, one thing I found fascinating, like, I've never actually seen any episode of the Castlevania series, but one thing I heard about it that I thought was fascinating was that Dracula has this gigantic army to the point where it has hierarchies, like the boss characters, like they have like ranking, like higher ranking officers and things like that. What I thought was fascinating is that he's building this army, but he's not trying to conquer territory or whatever, and mostly he's just killing people in the surrounding areas and defending the castle. And it apparently gets to a point where some of his generals are talking amongst themselves like, what is our boss trying to actually do? Like, what are we doing?
Well, yeah, that's
just a perspective I'd never considered.
That's the whole like primary conflict in the second Castlevania series. Like what Belmont and Sypha and Alucard are doing is like barely important at all, and that's why I like it so much, because they're all like stupid and I hate them. You know, like I'm glad that they spent the whole series more or less in a basement casting a spell. Like,
but that's something that like you don't really see a lot of media cover. Like when you have like the henchmen just expressing nervousness or discontent about the boss, which is kind of cool. Like Hokuto no Ken did it like in like one episode. There's a part of Suikoden 2 where Luca Blight and his crew just completely destroyed this one village, and his soldiers come back and they're like, "We're done, boss. Everything's gone." And he's like, "No, it isn't. I still see trees. Take those down too." And they're like, okay. It's just like really interesting.
I mean, it's a trope in some series to show like one episode where we get to find out what the villains are up to, but in Castlevania 2, it's like the whole series, and it really
it was really well done.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, do any of you guys have any other thoughts on historical figures,
Wow,
or I guess Castlevania Netflix?
Totally forgot we were talking about historical figures. I mean,
the real Castlevania Dracula.
Technically, Vlad the Impaler was a real historical figure, but I think that depictions of him in media have widely diverged from his historical status.
I think for accuracy's sake, Trevor in the Netflix series should have been called Ralph. Should have been more canon.
That's your biggest problem.
And anybody?
No, go ahead.
Castlevania 3, the localization called him Trevor because in Japanese, like the Japanese game, he's called Ralph.
Nice.
And they were like, we're calling him something different.
So
I remember I was watching an internet reviewer talking about the Castlevania series, and she was like just getting on its case about like his name is Trevor, and I was like, no man, it could be like that's the name they changed it to. You know, it's like in Robin Hood Men in Tights, Latrine. Your name was changed to Latrine. Yes, it used to be Shithouse. Good change. But yeah, so any additional thoughts on Robin Hood Men in Tights?
Nope.
All right. It's a good movie. But anyway, that's the show for this week. We want to thank all of our fans who contributed questions and responses. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own on the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement keeps the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesdays on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, and an in-depth look at this week in our lives. And finally, you could friend me. Oh, I was reading too directly. You can't friend me on Steam, but you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you're interested in seeing my videos early, getting on an exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or even getting in a Discord chat with me and other patrons, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account at patreon.com/LotusPrince. I was going to say you could friend Vice the Bold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, and Twitter.
But then you just went ahead and said it anyway.
Yeah. It defeats the purpose.
Well, no, I was going to say it, but then I didn't.
And you can find me as PyroJackFrost or Cloudoid540 on Battle.net, Steam, PSN, and that's pretty much it.
And you can find me as OldManStompy on most major gaming and social media networks, except for Steam, where I'm a party of one.
All right, then. Well, thank you very much for listening. Until next time, everyone.
Peace.
Cheers.